And in the heart of Mexico City, a relic of ancient Aztec civilization persists, the canals of Xochimilco. These ancient waterways, once the lifeblood of a thriving civilization, now serve as a grim stage for a tale of tragedy and the supernatural. Once upon a time, Xochimilco was a vast system of lakes and canals, a testament to Aztec ingenuity. The Aztecs, a people deeply in tune with nature, saw these waterways as sacred paths connecting the mortal realm with the divine. Into this world of whispering waters and lingering spirits, a tragedy unfolded. A young local girl, Maria, mysteriously drowned in one of the canals. The vibrant life that once filled her eyes was abruptly extinguished, leaving behind only a lifeless shell. Her body was discovered by Julian Montenegro, a local preacher who had recently taken to a life of solitude after losing his faith. Julian, a man haunted by his own demons, found himself drawn to the girl's tragic end. The sight of Maria, forever silenced by the dark waters of the canal, stirred something within him. Perhaps it was guilt, a sense of failed duty, or maybe a desperate need to find meaning in this cruel twist of fate. Whatever it was, it led him to a doll, eerily floating near Maria's lifeless body. In the doll, Julian saw a sign. It was as if the doll was a silent witness to Maria's untimely death, a tangible link to her departed spirit. He took the doll and hung it from a tree on a nearby island he tended to, a makeshift ritual to protect Maria's spirit, a beacon in his quest for redemption. Haunted by Maria's whispers, Julian retreated further into isolation. Julian Montenegro, once a respected preacher, had already been on the fringes of society. After a crisis of faith, he had left the church, seeking solace in Xochimilco's ancient waterways. But the tragic death of young Maria, the girl he discovered drowned in the canal, pushed him further into the realm of solitude. Julian's isolation was not an act of despair, but rather a quest for redemption. He believed that in his solitude, he could better serve as a guardian for Maria's spirit and others like her. Julian's loss of faith in the church had not stripped him of his belief in the supernatural. If anything, it had made him more receptive to the otherworldly whispers that echoed in the silence of the island. The doll he found floating near Maria's lifeless body was the first of many. Julian saw it as a sign, a symbol of protection for the young girl's spirit. He hung it from a tree on the island, a makeshift ritual that marked the beginning of an obsession. As days turned into weeks and weeks into months, Julian's collection of dolls grew. Each doll, he believed, was a protector, a silent guardian against the unseen dangers lurking in the waterways. But as the number of dolls increased, so did the unease on the island. The whispers that Julian had initially attributed to Maria began to multiply, echoing through the canals at night. The dolls, once lifeless and inert, seemed to stir with a life of their own. There were fleeting visions, too, of Maria wandering the island, her eyes reflecting the moonlight. Julian's retreat into isolation was not merely a descent into madness. It was a battle against unseen forces, a fight to protect those who had met a fate similar to Maria's. As the sun set each day, the whispers grew louder, the dolls seemed to move, and Maria, it appeared, was not at rest. Over time, the island transformed into a macabre sanctuary, a testament to a life lost too soon. Julian, the solitary guardian of this secluded place, found himself in the grip of a peculiar obsession. Dolls, hundreds upon hundreds of them. Dolls of every shape and size, in every conceivable state of disrepair. They hung from the trees, their lifeless eyes staring blankly, their bodies swaying gently in the breeze. As the years passed, the island became a chilling monument to the drowned girl, Maria. The dolls, once symbols of innocence and joy, now stood as eerie sentinels, guarding the spirit of the departed. Their hollow eyes seemed to follow you wherever you went, their silent whispers carried by the wind. The legend of the haunted island grew, its tale whispered in hushed tones among the locals. The island became a place of morbid fascination, drawing the curious and the brave. Julian, now seen as the island's protector, found his behavior becoming increasingly erratic. He claimed to hear whispers in the wind, to see shadows moving in the corner of his eye. He was certain that the spirits of the drowned were trying to communicate with him. The supernatural encounters grew more vivid, more unsettling. Julian reported seeing apparitions of Maria, her spectral form wandering the island, her voice carried on the wind. He claimed to hear voices blaming him for not having saved her, for not having prevented her untimely death. But it was the dolls that were the most disturbing. Julian insisted they moved on their own, their glassy eyes watching him, their silent mouths whispering accusations. They seemed to act out scenes from Maria's life and death. Their glassy eyes always watching, always waiting. A storm was brewing, not just in the skies above Xochimilco, but in Julian's tormented soul. As the heavens roared, so did the inner turmoil of Julian. The rain, relentless and merciless, mirrored his ceaseless guilt. The night was no ordinary one. It was the anniversary of Maria's death, a date that was forever etched in Julian's heart and mind. The whispers grew louder. The doll's eyes seemed to glow brighter, and the apparition of Maria became more vivid. Julian was no longer a spectator to this spectral theater. He felt an overwhelming presence, a force that was pulling him towards the water, urging him to join Maria in her watery grave. Haunted by the incessant whispers and the guilt of not saving Maria, Julian made a decision. He chose a doll, one that he believed resembled Maria the most. He held it close to his chest, as if trying to comfort it, to comfort himself. His heart pounded against his ribs, a frenzied rhythm that echoed in the silence of the night. With a deep breath, he stepped into the dark, churning waters of the canal. The cold shock of the water felt like 1,000 icy needles piercing his skin, but he pressed on, wading deeper into the water until he was swallowed by the blackness. The morning sun rose, casting an eerie glow over the storm-ravaged Xochimilco. The once bustling canals were eerily silent, a stark contrast to the storm of the previous night. The locals, who had taken shelter from the storm, slowly began to emerge, their curiosity piqued by the unusual calmness. Then came the horrifying discovery. Julian's lifeless body was found in the exact spot where Maria had drowned. The doll he had chosen was still clutched tightly in his hands, its glassy eyes staring blankly at the morning sky. His death was shrouded in mystery, with signs of struggle visible, but no clear cause. In the exact spot Maria had been found, Julian too was discovered, a doll clutched tightly in his lifeless hands. Even in death, Julian's presence lingered. The dolls, his silent sentinels. Now the island of the dolls stands as a haunting testament to Julian's life, his tragic obsession, and the little girl whose death sparked it all. The island, once a quiet sanctuary, has transformed into a notorious tourist attraction. Visitors from all corners of the globe come to witness the eerie spectacle of dolls hanging from trees, their eyes seemingly following each movement, their whispers carried on the wind. tales of unexplained phenomena have spread far and wide. Visitors speak of inexplicable cold spots that make the hair on their necks stand up. They tell of dolls whispering their names as they pass by, and of sightings of spectral figures believed to be Julian and Maria's spirits. The island has become a place where the veil between our world and the spirit world seems to thin. Yet, not everyone comes to the island as a believer. Among the crowds, there are skeptics, those who come to debunk the tales, to prove them as nothing more than urban legends. One such skeptic was Carlos, a man of science, of logic, who ventured onto the island one cool autumn night. Carlos came to the island armed with skepticism and a flashlight. He laughed off the stories, the whispers of the dolls, the cold spots. But as he ventured deeper into the island, the laughter died in his throat. A doll whispered his name, its voice a chilling echo in the silence. He felt a sudden drop in temperature, a coldness that seeped into his very bones. Suddenly, he was gripped by a terrifying vision. He saw Maria's death. Her desperate struggle had claimed another believer. Her name whispered by a doll. A vision of Maria's death and Julian's final moments. The skeptic had become a believer. The island of the dolls, a haunting testament to a tale of loss, guilt, and redemption. It's an eerie tableau that speaks volumes about the human spirit, our capacity for grief, and the lengths we'll go to make amends with the past. Long after Julian Montenegro's mysterious demise, the island remains shrouded in an aura of melancholy and mystery. His story, intertwined with that of Maria, the young girl who drowned in the canal, continues to resonate with those who dare to venture onto the island. The dolls, in their various states of decay, are more than just objects. They're symbols of a man's struggle with guilt and his desperate attempt to protect others from a fate he couldn't prevent. Julian's life, his retreat from society, his obsession with the dolls, and his tragic end all reflect a profound sense of remorse, a yearning for redemption that was never fully realized. And then there's Maria, the innocent victim whose life was cut short by the merciless currents of the canal. Her spirit, according to local lore, is believed to haunt the island. Trapped in an eternal loop of tragedy, her story is a grim reminder of the unpredictability of life and the inevitability of death. But perhaps what's most haunting about the Island of the Dolls is not just the chilling sight of the dolls or the tragic tales of Maria and Julian. It's the reflection of our own fears and insecurities that we see in their stories. It's the realization that we, too, are capable of being consumed by guilt, driven by obsession, and desperate for redemption.